Hello folks, welcome to Lexi IAS. In today's video, we'll be looking into the art, architecture and literature of Cheran Empire. Okay, now let's get into the video. Now, when we say Cheran Empire, okay, or Cheran Dynasty, we've discussed when will it be called an empire or on what context, right? In the previous video of Cheran, we've discussed in the administration and political part. The video will be linked below in the description. Please have a look at it. Okay. Now when we say Cheran Dynasty or Cheras, right? The contemporary. Okay. We also have spoken are your Cholas and Pandyas. Alright. Now, if you see the art, architecture, administration, or for example, even your literature, right? All of them will be a culmination of these three. Even though each has its own unique features, but if you look at it in an overall perspective, all these three, okay, to an extent have a similarity. Okay. Now in today's video, we'll be talking specifically about Cheran Empire, okay, or Cheran Dynasty, and we'll be specific about the Cheras. Okay. Now before entering, see, we spoke something about architecture, right? And then we spoke something about literature. Right? These two things. Alright. First, for architecture, we have visible sources, right, in the form of your buildings, right, temples, sculptures, etc. Whereas for your literature, right, whatever we will discuss, it will be this culmination point, because for example, we have again time and again used this word, Sangam literature, right? Sangam literature or Sangam age, right, is a culmination of these three, and the literature in this particular period of time of these contemporaries speak about specific of Cheran, specific of Cholas, specific of Pandyas, right? Also, it is a mention of how the society was in the southern region. So, the difference is, in specific also it is mentioned, in generalized for the global region. Okay, the southern region, that is also specified in your Sangam literature and texts. Alright, now let's enter. Look at this. We spoke something about administration. We also spoke one form of administration that we can see is through temples. How were the temples? See, one thing about temples in the southern India or that point, right, your Cheran Dynasty, the temples were not just used for praying purposes, right? It was a place where your royal king will come to meet his nobles, or a place where your king will come meet with his common people, right? Also, it is a place where marriages used to take place, right? It is a place where children learned. It was a mode of education. It was a place of art. Alright, it was a place of dance form indicating recreational music. Alright, that became their version of lifestyle. So, the temples are more of associated with the lifestyle of the entire, okay, dynasty, associated with it, rather than just for a means of prayer. So, temple, okay, even though it has a religious culture, okay, a religious importance, it also had secular aspects to it. Understanding? So temples had more of, okay, for example, any information as to what was happening in the state, okay, a congregation to speak among people, temple was one of the zones. Okay, that temples were also, for example, if you see the temples, if you see, there'd be some water pond nearby, okay, indicating hygiene, indicating their, okay, adherence to, okay, indicating their adherence to cleanliness. Alright, now look at this. Chera architecture is also known as Dravidian architecture. Okay, we'll discuss ahead when we come to architectures as to what distinguishes and why is it called Dravidian architecture. Alright, now the temples here, okay, were mostly built with sandstone or granite. Alright, the temples had Vimanam, Mandapam, Gopuram, Garbhagriha. That is, it had a long tower, right, that was called as Gopuram. Right. Now, Look at this. Mandapams is nothing but, think of it like a large assembly hall, but in that mandapam multiple things took place. For example, we spoke something about dance. We said it was a place of imparting education where students learn from their teacher. There was also a place where marriages used to take place, right? There was also a place where religious ceremonies used to take place. That is with your mandapams. Garbhagriha is the inner sanctum, okay? Inner sanctum where the idol is placed, okay? Inner sanctum where the idol is placed or main deity is placed. Okay, one thing is there would be other deities also in the temple in the form of sculpture, or they would be outside in a smaller mandapams, okay? So presence of not just one god but also multiple gods were there, and one was the main deity. Understanding? Next, the gopurams were the tallest structure like we discussed, right? Your temples were zone of socializing, education, celebration, hospital, storehouse. Yes, these things we have heard about: socializing, education, celebration. What is it with respect to hospital and storehouse? See, now at that point of time, right, for example during the Chera Dynasty period, there used to be some kind of famines at point of time, drought. That time they used to store, okay, they need a place to store the grains. Yes, at that point they utilize the temples, right? For example, there is some disease, right, where immediate need of place is needed to house larger number of people. What is the one source that is available? Remember we spoke about mandapams, etc. That is your temples. They served as both your hospitals as well as your storehouses. Okay, so basically temples, okay, were a zone, okay, not just of spiritual upliftment but also your physical well-being. Alright, that is the significance of temples during Cheran Dynasty. Next, it was a flourishing zone of art, music, dance, drama, handicrafts. Yes. Alright, also one important thing is your temples, okay, was also, now if you see even today, right, around temples you notice that zone of economic activity will take place. Yes, which mean there trade and commerce, not trade and commerce that happens on the coastal side, but trade and commerce do happen near the temple vicinity, okay, making it a economic zone also. Understanding? These are the significance of temple or architecture of specific to Cheran administration or Cheran dynasty. Alright? Now let's have a look at what are those temples. Right? One is a Shiva temple. Right? Look at this. Lord Shiva was worshipped by Uma Devi, one of the oldest Shiva temples in southern India. Okay, it is in Thrissur district. Right? Whenever you observe, okay, temples from now on, just see the architecture and the way of style it is built in. Right? Next is a Bhagavati Amman temple. It is in Kanyakumari, Tamil Nadu. It is also called as Bhadrakali Amman temple. Alright. Now this is one of the 52 Shakti Peetams in India. Right? The important festivals like Navaratri, etc. are celebrated here. One thing I want you to observe here. Look at this. Right? This would form your Gopuram. Now look at this. There are also smaller shrines. Right? Now in there, right, remember we spoke something about, right, other deities also being present. Right, and there is also one chief deity. Right, so for this other deities, right, not just in sculpture, actual deities also have a smaller mandaps or smaller gopuras inside one temple. That is, imagine this. Okay. This is the chief deity, right? This is the large towering Gopuram. But there would be other smaller deities. See now, for example, in the previous thing, you would see sculptures or pillars in which sculptures of deities would be there, Dwarpalaks would be there. But here, smaller deities themselves would be there and they would also have smaller Gopurams. Okay, smaller gopurams would be present, which will house your smaller deities or other deities. Okay, next is your Mahavishnu temple. It is in Kerala, right? Represents 5 ancient shrines connected to Mahabharata. Let's have a gist of what is the art and architecture of your Cheras. Okay, Cheras architecture is known as Dravidian architecture, like we discussed. Right, temples are mostly octagonal or rectangular in shape. Okay, so the shape is either octagonal or rectangular, built with sandstone or granite. Right, the temples are divided into 4 sections: Vimanam, Mandapam, Gopuram, Garbhagriha. We have discussed these things. Right, Gopurams, an imposing tower over the entrance, were the tallest structure in the village and town where they were built. One more thing, see, like we said, Gopuram, right? At that point of time, okay, one thing, it will be either about lighting a lamp as big as, okay, that can house a bigger lamp, so that, or lighting a, okay, light, so that when a person is traveling by, let's say night time or evening time, this tallest tower, right, housing the light, would act as a guide, a light, a torch, be it both spiritually, physically or metaphorically. Okay, this light would act as a way provider, pathfinder, path provider, okay, in the darkness. Maybe at that point of time they didn't have street lights, right? This served as their version of lighting. Okay, this provided their version of transportation where they needed light in the darkness. That could be seen in spiritual aspect, that could also be seen in a physical aspect. Alright, that was one interesting feature of your temples. Right. The Gopuram was always lit at night, often to guide a tired traveler or show the passer by a way. Right. The temple was more than just a place of worship. It was a place of socializing, education, celebration. Not just king's battle, but also local function ceremonies such as marriages. Okay. So celebration. Okay. Celebration, entertainment. Right, these were also visualized on a larger scale. Okay, the temple was also used as sort of emergency storage facility. Many temples also housed hospitals, like we discussed. Right, now let's enter into the literature section. See, earlier we used about this Sangam age. Right, now when we say Sangam age, okay, that means it is a culmination of all 3. Okay, all 3 of them forms your Sangam age. Okay, that is the predominance of Sangam age or Sangam age literature. Sangam literature speaks about your Cheras, Cholas, Pandyas. The predominant ones were these trifecta. Okay, culmination of all these 3. Okay, whatever society that developed, okay, whatever literature that developed, okay, all this would be called as your Sangam age. The literature produced in this period of time is your Sangam literature. Understanding? Now, your Sangam texts are the actual sources or literary sources, okay, that provide us an insight into your social, economic, political, psychological, okay, aspects of the society. Furthermore, any source we get or any idea we get, this how they lived, this how they did, okay, this how the society was, all was based on one most important source being your Sangam texts. Right? What are those Sangam texts? For example, that is your Silapadikaram. Right? In which, see, now these things have, for example, it can be seen as a story. Right? It can be just a story. Right? It is a very classic story, yes, all those things. But also, this outlines the administration of Chera Chola Pandya. How their administration was, okay, how their society was, how the art was, how the culture was, all those things. Okay, we get a direct, detailed view in this story. That is Silapadikaram. Next is your Tirukural written by Tiruvalluvar. This is another classic, that is your Manimekalai. Provides us insights into how the administration was or how the kings was. For example, in this thing, in Manimekalai and Silapadikaram and all those things, you will get an idea as to how the political aspect was also, whether the king was kind, whether the king was cruel, whether the king was taking hasty judgment, whether the king was consulting his ministers before he took decisions, or whether the kingdom or the administration was running in an haphazard, arbitrary manner or on a detailed administrative path laid out. All that kind of details we get it through these sources. Alright. Next is your Tolkappiyam. Alright. Now look at the literature. Sangam texts. Right. Now these are the other literature during the Cheras, which are important. The one we have discussed about Silapadikaram. The epics being Silapadikaram, Manimekalai, Tolkappiyam written by Tolkappiyar. It is about Tamil grammar. Then Tirukural is written by your Tiruvalluvar. Alright. So basically the underlying thing is these same literature or the same literary sources will provide us for, we've mentioned that all these literary sources will provide us information on these dynasties, but also the concept that there were these kingdoms, the fact that we are able to put a timeline that these people existed at this particular time of time, this dynasty was a contemporary of this dynasty. So basically the existence of this is verified by this literary sources. More than just providing what the administration was, the verification of these present at this particular point of time is provided by this literature. That is why this literary sources become important. Also this literature provides an insight as to how were the contemporaries. Were they always infighting? We have spoken that they always fought among themselves, often, more than often. Alright, this is also proved verified by your literary sources. Alright, let's have a gist of it. The Sangam texts are a large body of Tamil works that describe number of Chera rulers along with Pandya and Chola rulers. Right? Basically, Sangam texts are literary works. Right? Now, these are the important literature of Cheras. Alright? This is the fourth book in Ettukottai anthology, which means several. Right? Several of your Chera rulers and their heirs were mentioned here. Alright, now this point I want you to have a look. Remember, we spoke about the political concept, etc. We also speak about the hierarchy. Alright, the concept of this hierarchy is also mentioned in this literary sources. Alright, Shenguttavan, we have described about it in the political aspect, described as Ilango Adigal's elder brother, the legendary Tamil poem Silapadikaram. Alright, we just discussed about Silapadikaram. He also mentions Shenguttavan's decision to build a temple, for goddess Patini or Kannagi. Like we have discussed, Kannagi or Patini is the goddess of chastity. Silapadikaram was written in the period of time when Tamil poets were ruling. Alright. The other literary works during the Sangam period are Padinil Kanakettukottai, Tolkappiyam, Silapadikaram and Manimekalai. So basically these are the ones that are providing the existence and verification of the fact this particular kingdom flourished here and this is how the kingdom progressed. Alright, now that's it for the art, architecture and literature of Cheras. If you do like our content, please subscribe to our channel, like it and share it among with your friends. Thank you.